Welcome to my review of Destroy All Humans 2020. This is recorded after I made the review because I'm stupid and can't make intros. um, enjoy. Let's start off with the stuff that I didn't like about it. The stuff that everybody hated about it, like 90% of people hated about it, is the cartoony animation style. And honestly, I wasn't a fan of it at first. I don't know if maybe like the first like 4 or 5 levels didn't have as much time or what. But so I was watching them. It could have just been me getting used to it, but after a while they started looking more and more natural. Because I think Pox and Crypto look fine. I think they look fine. There are a couple times where they look a little but I'd say for the most part they look fine. I think Armquist looks fine too, especially since he's mainly covered with you know, clothes. It's like almost 90% clothing. There's barely any face there. He's got glasses and stuff on. Same thing with Silhouette, especially since you don't see her until at the very end of the game. Spoiler alert, kind of. But when she actually takes her suit off, she looks terrible. 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 If I can, I'm gonna pull up a clip of me saying it. They nerfed the fuck out of her chest. Not as bad as like Samus. Dude, she looks like dog shit. She looks like fucking dog shit. How bad she looks, dude. Um, and another thing I noticed when I was watching it, like when I was playing it, I mean. So when I'm playing it, right, the controls are completely different. It's probably mainly because the PC version's holding it back because, you know, can't exactly have a controller format on a PC kind of console game. It took me a while to get used to. I've only have like 2 or 3 very major complaints, and that is the way Holobob works. In the original game, somebody could be dead on the floor and you can still take the Holobob. In this one, if somebody's dead, you can't Holobob. You have to be right next to them to Holobob. And the problem with being right next to somebody to Holobob is that you can't, like, it'll get compromised. So you have to hide from some people. So if your Holobob gets compromised, it's fairly hard for it to not be compromised again. And you have to scan somebody before it disappears, you know? There's the focus meter or concentration meter, whatever you want to call it, is completely gone. Not present at all. And so instead, your Holobob just slowly goes down, turns yellow. And if there's a G-Man, you know how the G-Man will just immediately, just in the original game, it'll just completely just get rid of your Holobob. And this one, it just very rapidly degenerates your meter. Just very, like, instead of going like this, slowly turns yellow. It'll just turn red and it'll just go. You have to be pretty quick. And if there's 2 G-men near you, it's just gonna basically disappear almost in the snap of a finger. So, coming from a person who has played the original a lot, a very lot of time, so many times, countless times. If you ask me, the only things that I thought needed the only things I thought needed change from the original were the ammo mechanic and how the saucer worked, how you couldn't go up and down. Although I did think the addition of being able to fire directly down with the death ray and other weapons was a cool little addition. I thought that was kind of neat. That was something I liked that wasn't in the original game. And the funny thing is before the game launched, I thought it was kind of dumb how water never even insta-killed you. During my playthrough, I had no problems with water at all. So I don't know if there's less water or what. Because I never once had that be a problem. Water. Never once. I'm very mixed with the addition of the homing attack. So if you're shooting a boss or any enemy, it'll just hit it directly. I'll show an example on screen, obviously. There was a couple, when I was in my playthrough, not the worst ever, but when Teenage Zombies from Outer Space, that mission was almost entirely changed. In the original, you had to, I think I even pointed out in my playthrough, you had to get a movie tape from the military base across the street, which isn't really that hard, but in that one, it's like, oh, go ahead and pick it up, even though it's like 2 feet away from you. You know, I don't understand that, but I also made the movie projector in the center of the place instead of to the left, to the right of it, where the little, maybe they thought that it'd be too easy to camp over there, so they're like, oh, let's move it over here instead. I'm not sure why that is, but they did it. That mission was never hard or anything to begin with. There's actually quite a few missions, not like by a ton, but quite a few that were easier than the original. Quite a few. Not by a lot, but it's like, you know, I mean, the game was never really that hard. Like, the original was never hard. You might die maybe 2 or 3 times in a playthrough. Maybe. On like a casual playthrough, you might die 2 or 3 times. Yeah, when I was playing through my playthrough, yeah, there are also, I forgot to mention, there are now checkpoints in every single level. In the original, if you die or fail, you're immediately prompted to start the mission over again. And I didn't really have a problem with most of the checkpoints, even though there were a couple times that it would just teleport me in really weird areas. Like, a couple times it would teleport me on buildings while disguised as like a police officer. I was like, okay. But, I wasn't like, it wasn't a big, like, killer for me. Because it's whatever. I kind of had a feeling when this remake was coming out that the original was going to be harder. Not by a ton, but I had a feeling it was going to be a little bit harder. All the weapons have been buffed, except with the exception of the Disintegrator Ray. The Disintegrator Ray has been severely nerfed. In the original game, that is, like, without a doubt, like, your primary weapon. Because if you can get that thing with triple shot, you're pretty much golden. But in the remake, they made it, you have triple shot, right? So there's triple shot is still in the game, sort of. But there's 1 big shot in the center and 2 little shots instead of the normal big shots in the original. So they didn't cut it completely, they just changed it a lot. Zap-O-Matic is also way better. You can, if you get it like a decent upgrade, you can shoot somebody, and then you let go of the trigger for like a second, it's fully charged again. They made the Zap-O-Matic like probably one of the best weapons in the game. Because, I mean, there's only like 4 or 5 weapons in the game, but still. Anal Probe is also way better. I did not like the Anal Probe in the original game. I tried to avoid the Anal Probe at all costs. I was not a fan of it. Not a fan. Moving on to saucer stuff. Another thing that was changed from the remake, you can drain like in 2. Although it has been slightly altered. You know how in 2, when you do a drain, it sucks up like a little green beam and then slowly takes all the energy out of a vehicle. In this one, you just hover above anything or anyone, just mash the regen button, and boom, you got health. It can even kill enemies and stuff if you lock onto them. The addition of transmog. Because getting ammo in the original game was much harder. Much harder. Much harder. And obviously the sonic boom was nerfed. And the death ray was also buffed. I don't think it was buffed as hard as the Zap-O-Matic, though. Quantum Deconstructor also seems nerfed to me. I don't know if that's Was when I was my playthrough, I almost never used it. I thought it was borderline useless. Maybe I just didn't get the right upgrades or what, but I didn't. I only used it maybe 3 or 4 times on. And that was on like RoboPress too. So, because you can only shoot it like 2 times, and then you have to get a bunch of more bullets to just do it once. One thing I did that did slightly irritate me. So you know how in the original you have the options to distract and hypno. The option to hypno is completely gone unless it's a mission objective. You know how you could make somebody well, you can actually distract people. It doesn't have the same like efficiency as in the original. Like they made it slightly less effective. As in the original, if you just hypno somebody, holla Bob, you're golden. I don't know why. I guess they just figured we don't need the sleep ability. Because like, if you really think about it, that kind of ability was kind of useless, to be honest. Also, they also added the option to forget, which was their feature from 2 that I thought was kind of neat. If you're on the mission where you have to get Burt Wither, that mission has been completely altered. That mission and the first game's mission are 2 completely different missions. In the original, which I'm kind of disappointed they got rid of the option, you were able to get the crackpot or whatever they call him. You were able to just hypnotize him and have him walk straight to him. And as easy as that. Yeah, in the remake, it's not an option at all. Disappointing. So what they have you do in the remake is they have you like disguise as a chef, and then you have to go get Burt Wither. Unfortunate you can't disguise yourself as Burt Wither, because in the original that's what you were supposed to do, is disguise yourself as him so they won't know who to kill. So it basically gives you a lot of resistance toward the G-Men. And I'm not sure if it's a bug, but I want to talk about the mission Duck and Cover. So I'm halfway through the mission, right? Right after the part where you get the rocks, I die, right? And I'm not sure if it's a bug, or I got a really bad checkpoint. Could be both. So what it did is it respawned me to a checkpoint, right? And the problem with that is it respawned all the previous waves. So I had to deal with one wave coming from behind me, one in front of me, so it's giving me the people that were supposed to be dead. So I had to completely restart that mission to get it done. It also gave me next to no health. And you have crazy, like, RPG snipers everywhere that just hide. And they're like 2 shots from those, then that your bomb is dead. That's like one of the few missions I'd say that was upgraded. That one was actually like harder. Problem I had with it, in the original, you could put something in front of the bus, or just stand in front of it, really, and it wouldn't go. But in this one, if it sees landmines sitting on the road, it'll just walk right over them. It'll be like, oh, neat. And just walk right on them. In this one, you could at least block its path with something, and then destroy all the stuff in its way. That was probably the only problem I really had with that. Because, boy, was it pissing me off when I was playing it. Could be just a bug, though. I'm not sure. Or at least the whole respawning waves part. That could just have been a bug. It's the part where you get 1 through 6, right? And I'm inside the building, and somehow a robot, which is like twice the size of the gate, just walks right in. I'm sitting over here like, huh? How does that work? I don't know if I was like more annoyed by it or thought it was kind of funny. I'm not sure which one. They had an underground segment where you take an elevator and go underneath, which I thought that little cutscene was kind of neat. Where you fight the mutants. Even though you could in the original, you could easily cheese the mutants. While they're in their cages, they still take damage, even though they're behind the cages. If you get your disintegrator ready, you could just shoot them. And they won't do nothing about it. You could cheese that mission so easy. And the mission after that, or they had the Tesla coils. You know how in the original you had to shoot them with like maybe 4 or 5 ion detonators each, and this one you could just hold X and they break. That's one of the missions I would say that it was severely nerfed in the original. Most of them are equal or slightly easier. Like we're talking like originals up here, remakes are like right here. But the Tesla coil part of 136 is probably like way down here. They made that one way easier. And when you had to go back to your saucer, they used to have landmines and stuff. Those are completely removed, not present at all. They had a bunch of landmines you had to avoid. And the thing I didn't like is when they want you to blow up the laboratory. If you see up here, in the original game, like, there's a bunch of rubble and stuff, and here they just disappear. It's just not present. I liked the new mission. I always wondered what was up with the whole flying saucer looking thing the Armquist came up with. And this is like more of like a half a mission because it's pretty short. I thought it was a nice addition, but it's the only new mission. Everything else is straight out of the original or slightly different. So my favorite mission from the original, if anybody is curious, is Fear Rundown. It's the part where Crypto gets kidnapped and he has to escape that laboratory. And I'm watching the cutscene and I'm already whining about it.
Curse you, pathetic humans!
It completely removed the little scream he had at the beginning. He's just like, curse you, pathetic humans! And then wakes up to this. And you can't even disguise as the scientist while you're in there, because that was something you could do in the original game. I actually had a lot of hard time with this one, because it's like, oh, dude, get a human disguise, and then somebody would find me. If you get caught in this mission once, you're probably not going to find another holobob. But yeah, this is one of the few, very even slower few that's actually harder in the remake than the original. This one is easy breezy in the original. Easy breezy. And so when you go to shoot one of the workers with your ray gun, there's a lot less movement in the cutscene. I'm watching it sitting here like, wow, there's the audio and everything is there, but there's so much less like movement in the animation than the original. So much less. There's barely any there. Like, I see almost no personality in that cutscene. The way bosses work, in the original, they just had generic health bar. In this one, they have 3 health bars. 1 regular health bar, 1 second health bar, and 3 other bar. You see 1 health bar at a time, and it's followed by 3 little lightning bolts. Every time you hit a lightning bolt, they regen full health, and then they start attacking you again. They have a little bit of iframes, a few iframes, and they start taking damage again after they reach full health for the second phase or whatever. And when I was fighting Armquist, the first and second phase felt almost identical. It wasn't until the third phase, I kid you not, until the last phase, I didn't even get to the point where I was half dead. Armquist was already a pretty easy boss, but in this one he's just a little bit easier. And I don't even think it's the boss that's harder, easier. I think it's primarily because of the homing, how every attack you shoot homes onto the enemy, and that's why I think what causes this one to be easier. They didn't really add anything different to compensate for the homing attack. The last thing I want to talk about is the final boss. Obviously, spoiler alert if you're for like one of the like 6 people in the world that cares. So, Silhouette / Roboprez I wouldn't even consider this fight a remake. This fight is not a remake. This fight is completely different. Nothing like the original. For the good or the worse. I was a little salty. Don't get me wrong. Mega salty. Won this fight. But, hear me out. It's not because I'm bad. Well, a little bit. But it's because I didn't know you were supposed to mash regen. Once I figured out you were supposed to mash it, not just hover above something and push it once and just hope it regenerates. After I figured out you're supposed to mash it, I had no problems beating this final boss. Because after I beat it... So, Roboprez in the original, he stays pretty much completely idle all the time. So he just stays idle, right? He stays idle almost the entire time, and once he gets to his second phase, instead of constantly running from you, he stays there, and once he reaches his second phase, then he runs. He runs over by the bridge, does his second phase. He's got a bunch of weird balloon things, which, spoiler alert, if you get close enough to them, if you mash, you could just regen off them. Spoiler alert. Pro tip. Spoiler alert, precise pro tip, whatever you want to see it as. But, and after you destroy all the balloons, she'll, like, put her hands up in the air and summon more, and while she's doing that, you could just shoot her a bunch for free. And she has these missiles, right? And if you go anywhere for more than, like, 3 feet away from her, she'll just constantly, with no stop. And once you reach phase 3, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, except for there's a couple turrets shooting at you, a couple robots, a couple G-men. You can regen off them too. And depending on how you what I did to beat it is that after I got her low on health, what I did, I regened as fast as I could, shot her so she'd go to her third phase, and then I tried getting ahead of her so I could destroy all the SAM turrets and everything, so I had almost nothing else shooting at me, so I could just focus on the boss. Right? And took me a while. But again, after I learned that you're supposed to just mash, it was no problem at all. But after you do that, third phase is over. You gotta fight Silhouette. She takes off her mask and everything, all that, blah, 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 blah. You know? And this fight is also completely different. I think it's both good that it's different and bad that it's different. Because in the original, you could just totally cheese it. It's time consuming, but yes, you could cheese it. Very, very time consuming, but you could cheese it. You could just tap the Zap-O-Matic over and over again, and she couldn't do nothing about it. It's very time consuming, but you could do that. Very, very time consuming, but that is an option. It is the safest way, but it's also the most pussy way. You know? It's pretty lame, too. So in this one, she has like 3 or 4 different attacks. I also noticed that there were little to no mutants in this one. In the original, there was a bunch of mutants and G-men everywhere. In here, there was only like 2 or 3 mechs. Sometimes roving robots. And here, there's probably not more than, besides Silhouette, there's no more than 4. Which kind of does make sense, because she's got a lot more weapons to her roster. She does a couple ones where she spin attacks, and there's just a bullet hell from there. But, spoiler alert, if you just jump upwards and attack her from up, they won't be able to hit you, unless she decides to do upwards. But usually you have enough time to react before she makes the switch over. And she has an attack that will completely kill everyone, including you, on the map. So the Roboprez is sitting right in front of the map. And he can still use that weird little laser thing that comes out of his chest. And once you do that, the whole map will turn purple, and then there's this little like area you can go into. And really, if your reaction time is fast enough, it could just be used to get free health. and free damage, because while that's happening, the boss won't attack you, so you could just be sitting right next to her and shoot her. She doesn't, by the way, she doesn't take damage from it, so if she's just going to the other side, she won't take damage from it. But she also won't attack you during that phase. But the biggest problem I have with it is that she's got this weird little purple beam that is completely undodgeable and will bring you down to like 2 health. That's right, 2 health. So if one G-Man shoots you in the back of the head, you're dead. Period. End of story. Game over. And that's kind of dumb. You would think there'd be some kind of way to stop it, because I was looking at it on Steam, and I guess I'm not the only person who had problems with this. But from what I've seen is that what I did to beat the boss for that, you want to try to keep her shield low, like midway or lower. So when she's ready to charge that attack up, you can just casually approach her and just right. So she just approach her, and then you can shoot her out of the air, and then the attack will completely be canceled. And the problem though is you also have to worry about the G-Men, right? And as long as you avoid the G-Men, right there, get some damage, she'll go into her second phase, and not much changes until the last phase. It's almost like identical each and every phase. So what she does in this one, instead of like regenerating full health like most of the bosses, she'll do a bunch of weird like flips, which I thought was kind of dumb. She'll just flip and flip and flip. She's also completely invulnerable while doing this. Flip and flip and flip, and then go to this weird little corner, depending on which side you are. So if you're on the left side, she'll go to the right side. If you're on the right side, she'll go to the left side. And there's this weird little pillar, like a purple pillar thing, and she just regens off of it. And while you're over there, there's a couple sentry turrets that'll shoot you if you get too close. The idea is you just want to throw a couple ion detonator shots over there, they'll be gone. And you want to try to shoot the weird little pillar thing so she can get the least amount of health possible. So you can get to the third phase and kill her faster. So it's pretty much just a repeat. 3 is slightly different, but not too much. On 3, there's a couple mutants and robots and stuff. And there's one attack it's very annoying. It'll just be some C4. You know how like soldiers in the remake will show like grenades and stuff. There'll be some weird like little airstrike things, and because of that stupid ass purple laser, it's cut. They're literally, that attack is literally like every 3 seconds, and then a purple laser. Right? But as long as there's no G-Men or anything, you'll probably be fine. But you just gotta really watch out for that purple laser, dude. That purple laser is ridiculous. So after if you can avoid that purple laser, like I said, just try to get her her shield like halfway, and then run at her and shoot her out of the air, and then you should be golden. If not, just try to stay a decent distance and regen, and try to... The problem is that the shield does slowly regen, so if you stay off of her for too long, it'll just go back to full, so you do want to occasionally try to get a shot in her. If you can. Probably recommend the ion detonator, especially if there's G-Men next to her, because that'll get rid of all that. Because the G-Men don't sound like a problem, but when you're at 2 health and just one unlucky shot that'll shoot you in the head and that's game over, yeah, you want to try to get as many as you can, because one EMP grenade, you're doomed. Period. One EMP or one mutant that gets you, you're done. You're done. Game over. And then after you do that, after a very long period of time completing the boss, 2 hours to be exact, to beat it, to beat that final boss. It probably took me about an hour to beat Silhouette, but I think most of it was RoboPrez, because I didn't know what the intended strat was. You get to the final cutscene, and don't think the final cutscene looks okay. I really do think this remake is good. I like the remake. Okay, there was a couple problems. I have a couple problems with it. Overall, I think it's good. I like it. Do I prefer the original? Yes. We're talking like maybe not a 50-50, but maybe like a 55, 45, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm not even gonna lie, I'm gonna blame it a little bit on nostalgia glasses. It's probably a little bit of nostalgia glasses that are slightly adjusting this, but it's mainly because I'm just not a fan of the animation. It slowly grew on me, but still not a fan. Not a huge fan, but it does grow on you. And I think the main reason they did it is because either A, to avoid an M rating, which does kind of make sense, or B, because if you look at Path of the Furon and Big Willie, it's more like cartoony. So maybe that's what they were going for. It's like, oh, Path of the Furon and Big Willie are more like cartoony-ish style. So maybe that's what they want to go for. Maybe that's what they were aiming at. That could be what it is. I would like to see what they would do if I like 2 a lot more than the first game. I've 100%ed it like 4 or 5 times. I'm still playing it on Twitch. I still have to beat Tunguska and Moonway Solaris. If you haven't played it, highly recommend it. 3 and 4, don't even bother with. Unless you like games that are so bad that they're funny, because they're pretty close to that. It's pretty funny for about 20 minutes and then it kind of burns out. So unless you could find them for like $5, wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, I really hope like Forrest could maybe come back and then do 2. I'm interested to see what they do with 2, because I honestly think 2 is just good the way it is. There's a couple things I'd change. Please nerf Mind Flash. For the love of God, nerf Mind Flash or completely remove it. Because that is way too good. Way, way, way too good. I think that's about all I need to say. Pretty average remake, I'd say. Thank you for watching.